Right. So this case study, what we have taken is a case study in context to the P27 solution implementation in the payments domain in context to SEPA. So before I am going to explain you about SEPA, or before I am going to explain you about P27 solution and all, let me give you an high-level understanding about the payment transactions first, because whenever we work as a business analyst, especially in the field of domain, either it can be payments, it can be banking, it can be of any other domain. End of the day, we should understand about what exactly payment processes will be of. I think anyway, you might have gone through what was payments and all everything. I think you have undergone the training. I know that, but still,
Yeah.
because this is the case study wherein we have started, let me give you a high level understanding over that. Normally, payments can be categorized into two different parts. So one is about the domestic payments, second is about international payments. So whatever the domestic payments people do, either from a person to person or from the company to company and all everything, is completely belongs to that respective currency which that country has. Okay, this is all comes under domestic part. Now, when it comes to the international payments are majorly follows a structure where it has a different payment structures and all will be there. Because if you follow some international payments and all that, some people follow international payments through Swift processing and all that. Swift processing is a kind of messaging system, right? So through a messaging system, whatever the required payment which is to be transferred for the particular person and all everything can be transferred. That is where generally this Swift processing system and all everything is being used. In the same manner, when it comes to the case study, what we have taken is completely focusing on the SEPA part. SEPA nothing but single euro payments area. This is what in detail we call it as single euro payment area. This is a kind of transactions which will be a cashless transactions, majorly whatever the transactions we do and all, whatever the euro payments are we doing and all. This is a cashless transactions, whatever the credit transfers or at the same time direct debits and all everything across European countries, whichever the European countries as well as the unions do we have. So they have a structure which is called SEPA, because whichever the European countries are located in that particular region, if they wants to have a transfer, because they do the trading and all everything between two different countries, because some countries will export something and some countries will import something, right? This is how generally trade relations will develop. Trade relations, this is what country to country trade relations will be there. For example, some X amount of quantity is growing in one country, they'll export that, and whatever the required commodity they want, they can import. Maybe it can be groceries, it can be food items, anything and all. So for that structure, generally in a larger context, I'm talking about, there must be a payment structure which must be there to provide some international transfers and transactions is what something which is required. In this regard, generally there is a payment structure which is called SEPA has been taken in the European Union. Normally, whatever the payment structures normally we do, whatever the kind of transfers and all everything we do and all everything, there is no direct transfers, because earlier if you do the regular transfers and all everything, direct transfers will be taken. So for that you don't require any kind of a no code, nothing for that sort. But whereas when it comes to the Swift processing, it is completely a secure application. Whatever the transactions we are doing, means whatever the cross-border payment transactions we are doing and all, everything was completely based on the regulatory standards, policies and procedures of a particular country. Because every organization, every country has some own rules and regulations which they follow. In this regard, especially whatever the cross-border payments they do, whatever the kind of payment services like PSD or PSD2 and all everything, this is all something comes completely confined towards SEPA migration, and as well as end-to-end regulations and all everything will be there. Followed by this, if there are any changes and all that, this is where generally interchange fees regulations, we call it as. Through this interchange fees regulations, when there is any kind of transaction happened in between, so there is some X amount of fees will be charged for the transaction. This may vary from transaction to transaction and all, everything will be varied. It is completely depends on the kind of regulation standards, policies and procedures, what they have followed. This is an overall concept about SEPA. Now, what exactly our project is all about? Our project is all about the first thing. If you are a BA, there are three things you need to know. Point number one, first you must be knowing about the challenge. Challenge or nothing but a business situation, I can call it as, because whenever we are working as a business analyst, it's always important for us to understand the business situation of the customer. Customer can be anyone. Customer can be of any different things and all, everything will be there. Normally, whenever we are talking about the customers and all, customers may be of different banks and different transactions and all, everything they will be doing. Between these banks, between these transactions, whenever they are doing, there are some technical challenges which they may be facing in time to time. So for that, generally there must be a kind of system, because if they wants to secure the transactions, because whatever the transactions they were doing and all, everything, if they wants to secure their transactions, at the same time, if they wants to develop a real-time clearing system and all, they required a payment structure which is called P27. Okay, P27 is a payment structure, I can say, payment Nordic payment infrastructure, or a structure we call it as. This is majorly facilitates the instant seamless flow of the real-time data, whatever the data I'm talking about, the transaction I'm talking about. So especially whenever they are doing any kind of cross-border payments and all, everything in different countries, whichever the European Union countries they have, if they want to do any kind of cross-border payments and all, everything. So under SEPA, they have to follow a payment structure or a payment process or a structure, which normally we call it as P27, it is used. So advantage under P27 is, P27 is a secure application, a secure network, I can say. It's not an application, it's a network, I can say. P27 is a secure network, wherein because of the secure network, whatever the transactions they were sending and all, everything will be highly secure, so that nobody can manipulate in between, right? So that possibility won't be there. At the same time, this P27 has a facility where it accepts multi-currency, because what are the different currency, these things and all, everything, even that multi-currency is also, because it's an European Union structure, SEPA is all about. So different countries have different cost, right? In terms of the dollar or euro cost and all, everything may slightly vary. For example, if you take one country, their euro cost may be something different, wherein if you are comparing with other country, there may be euro currency might be slightly different, right? So it depends on their financial this thing, right? So everything will be depending on. So in this regard, it's always important when we are making some cross-border payments, it is always important for us to implement a P27. It's not only a secure application, but it has an advantage wherein it supports multi-currency. At the same time, whatever the clearing system we want to develop, this P27 is a clearing system. More or less, I can say it's a kind of real-time clearing system, which normally any organizations, I'm talking about financial institutions, are something required. In this regard, especially the challenge here is that it was already mentioned here, because P27 is a kind of a network or a clearing system, which is majorly established to provide a instant as well as seamless flow of real-time data in terms of the payment data I'm talking about, which is a cross-border payments and all in different countries. Either it can be Denmark, it can be Sweden, or be Finland, right? So different countries and all. So, but when it comes to the banks and financial institutions and all, normally what happen, any banks or financial institutions, to manage their day-to-day operations and all, they have some existing legacy systems. They have their own systems which were already there. Normally, sometimes what happened, these old legacy systems were old applications, old infrastructure, whatever the features and functionalities as well as the business services it supports were very old. But in the present condition, what happened? Present condition payment structures were changed due to because of the trade policy and trade exchange agreements which was made between as well as among the governments, respective countries and all. Normally, there is a payment structure as well as the methodology or a process might have some changes. So normally the major problem, because this is where challenge comes into picture, please do remember this. So whenever there is a bank or a financial institution, whatever the old legacy systems they were using, that is something difficult for them to change to P27. Because as I stated earlier, it's an existing legacy application they were using for a long time. That application was old application. Whatever the configuration followed by the supporting payment structure was also very old. But when it comes to the SEPA transactions, when you are making any kind of pan-Nordic payments infrastructures and all, something like P27 and all, everything doesn't have that collaboration. Because if you want to make any kind of changes in the existing application and all, it is highly difficult. So because of the difficulty, what happened, whatever the kind of operations, I'm talking about payment operations, banks has to do for the cross-border payments and all, everything, it creates a difficulty for them to process this flow and all everything in a more secure and processed way, because this is where generally the major difficulty any banks are facing. In this regard, so solution provider, whoever are the solution provider are we talking about, solution provider came up with a solution in such a way, there must be a component based architecture based solution they are coming up with some. So this is something easily compatible with the business environment, which is already have, which the bank or a financial institution is already having. So if we are a business analyst, because that is the first point you need to know, if you are a business analyst, whenever you are going to provide any kind of solution for any of the customer requirements, the very first thing you must be understood about the business situation as a whole, because there is no customer as separate here. If you remember, there is no separate customer, we say. I am talking about banks and financial institutions, because this can be anyone or multiple also. Okay, because whatever the banks and financial institutions, whatever the payment transactions they do in the respective countries and all, everything will be the same. Because maybe organization to organization, size of the bank may vary. But whatever the regular day-to-day activities they do, whether banks or financial institutions will be same. Okay, that won't be changed. But unanimously, uniformly, whatever the problem banks and financial institutions are facing is they have an existing legacy system. These legacy systems are difficult for them to modify, which can be supporting to P27. That was the challenge. So if you are a business analyst, when you want to provide a solution for this, this is what something which you have to understand.